Okay, so welcome everyone to 15 Minutes of Positivity. It's Tuesday, so we're going to do a practice called Taking in the Good. Quick reminder, we meet every day for 15 minutes from noon to 12:15. And the idea behind this group is that we focus on activating those parts of our brain that allow us to build a foundation of well-being. So everything from mindfulness to gratitude to journaling, creativity, all kinds of daily practices. So feel free to join and share this with anyone that might be interested in participating. Okay, so today, as I mentioned, we are going to focus on a practice called Taking in the Good. And in order to create some context for that, I want you to just look at this picture for a second. And I want you to imagine that 3, 4, maybe 5,000 years ago, our ancestors were in the jungle, in the wild, and they were peering into this black hole in the jungle. And imagine what they were experiencing, the fear, the worry about what might be lurking in that black hole. And there are sort of fundamentally two assumptions that our ancestors could make as they were hearing sounds coming out of this dark hole. The first one is they could assume that the sounds were coming from a wild animal, right? So something dangerous. And as the rustle continued, then actually what happened, a little bird flew out. And the result of that was simply, maybe some embarrassment of, people looking at each other and saying, gosh, you thought that was a wild animal. And in fact, it was just a bird, no big deal, right? Now, the second assumption that they could make is, it's probably just a harmless bird. There's nothing really dangerous in there. But it actually turns out to be a wild animal, which kills them. So the result there is death. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it's the end of the genetic lineage, right? So we call this the negativity bias. This is a fundamental part of our wiring as human beings, is that we have a tendency to focus on the negative. We have a tendency to explain whatever is going on in our life and look at it through the lens of, this is bad, this is dangerous, this is something I need to fear, and therefore I'm going to assume that it's something bad. So just know that we have this lens installed, and it's a very fundamental part of our evolution. So in a very real way, we are the descendants, those of us on this call, those of us that are alive today, we're the descendants of our nervous, twitchy, anxious, irritable, scared, and frankly, one way I'd call this like chronically on edge ancestors, right? We are literally the genetic descendants of those ancestors of ours that survived because they assumed the worst all the time in a dangerous world. So here we are in this modern world with this same neurobiology, the same neurochemistry, the same, hormonal endocrine system that is basically constantly nervous, twitchy, on edge, and worried about, bad things happening, except now instead of the, wild animal in the bushes, it's a dirty look from our boss, or our partner, makes a comment that we now interpret as something, personal and negative. Fill in the blank. I think we can all relate to this this notion of a negativity bias. So the question is, what do we do about it? So this is one of my mentors and heroes, amazing author. He's written several books. His name is Rick Hansen. He lives here in the Bay Area, actually. And he adopted this technique or this process called taking in the good, or growing the good. And I'd like to walk you through that, because I think it's a really important tool for us to use, because it has a direct impact on this negativity bias, and it gives us a sort of an antidote that's at the ready anytime we need it to train this part of our brain that actually says, well, it's not necessarily always bad, or the look that someone gave me doesn't necessarily mean that it's a terrible thing, right? So here's how this goes. We're going to counteract the brain's negativity bias by going into our memory, and we're going to bring up a situation that felt reasonably good. It doesn't have to be the most positive thing ever, but it just needs to be something where we notice that, it was pretty good. It could be, food that we ate that we enjoyed. It could be a conversation that we had. It could be just something that felt good, generally speaking. And then we're going to look for the positive facts in that situation. Right? We're going to really dig in our memory and say, what exactly was so good or positive about that situation? Then the important part is we're going to savor those facts. So meaning we're really going to drop into our memory and we're going to say, okay, where in my body do I feel this positivity? The fact that someone was kind to me, or the fact that someone smiled at me, or the fact that something went my way, where in my body do I actually feel that? And the savoring part is really important because that's what stimulates or activates the part of our neurology that allows us to actually experience that. Right? If we want to go through life and be more open to noticing positivity when it happens, we need to prime our nervous system to be able to actually see it and feel it and really experience it when it happens. Then the other trick in this process is we need to hold on to that positive experience, that positive embodied experience, for at least 30 seconds. And the reason that's important is that's about the time that research has shown that it takes for that positive experience to actually register in our nervous system as explicit memory, right? So we want to take, sometimes we just go through life, things happen, we feel good about it, but we don't really pay attention to it. In this case, we really want to explicitly, intentionally notice it, internalize it, feel it, and hold on to that experience for at least 30 seconds. So that's how we literally begin to change the structure and function of our brain to be more oriented towards positivity. Okay, enough talking on my end. Let's actually do it. So go ahead and close your eyes. And just take a moment and see if you can bring to mind a positive experience. And what I mean with that, it doesn't need to be something exceptionally or overwhelmingly positive. It can literally just be on a scale from 1 to 10, it can be a 5. It can be a person at the coffee shop that smiled at you. That's it. It could be someone who complimented you or said something nice to you. It could also be just you being on your own, eating some food that you really enjoy, listening to music, reading a book. Again, just take a moment and see if you can connect with an experience that you had recently that felt good. And now, as you bring this memory to mind, I want you to amplify the experience. I want you to really see if you can kind of cycle through all 5 senses and first start off with, what are you seeing? What are you noticing about this positive experience? Where were you? Were you with someone? Are you on your own? What are the sounds and smells? What are you noticing about this experience? Like, really get into the details and amplify the memory of what happened. And as you're doing that, I want you to also amplify the sensation or the experience of what it feels like in your body to have this memory. Specifically focus on your belly, focus on your chest, focus on your hands, and just notice what it's like to be savoring or taking in this positive experience in your memory. Again, it doesn't need to be anything monumental or anything super strong. It just needs to be, just notice the nuance of, oh, this feels good. This is positive. As you're doing this, I'm noticing that time is ticking. Again, we want to hold on to this experience. 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Again, you can just notice where in your body you're feeling some degree of positivity. How do you know that this is a good experience? It's because it feels positive. And in order for you to feel the positivity of it, it means that all of those neurons, all of those connections in your brain are firing and are being activated. And all we're doing is we're using memory to stimulate that. And if you notice your mind wandering or getting distracted, totally fine, totally normal. When that happens, just bring it back to this positive memory and see if you can drop back in just for a few more seconds into the experience of feeling good. This is what Rick Hanson calls taking in the good. Like we are intentionally focusing on something that we remember felt good. And now we're taking it in, we're savoring it, we're allowing it to permeate our body, we're noticing where we feel it. And it's basically a little trick that we're playing on our brain where we're saying, yeah, in order to have this memory and feel it, I know all of that neurology is being activated. The more I activate that neurology to feel it, the easier it becomes for me to do so in the future. All right, and take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, go ahead and open your eyes. And again, notice the present moment. And as always, see if in the background you can maintain the sense of connection to, yeah, what does it feel like in my body to still hold on to this afterglow of having experienced something positive, even though it was just in my memory. So I hope that was helpful. This technique is called taking in the good. It is a, research. It's a validated, process. We've seen people in functional MRIs go through this process and activate that part of their neurology simply using memory. So again, it's one of these things from a neuroplastic standpoint. The more we do this, the easier it gets. The hard part, in my experience, is just remembering to actually do it, remembering to carve out the time to do it. So that's what we're doing here together today. So as per usual, I'll stick around for some more time. If anyone wants to chat or has any questions or wants to connect, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, we'll plan on seeing you hopefully tomorrow, same time, same place for another 15 minutes starting at noon.